Imagine a hotel in the 1930s. A broken radio is sitting in a room, blasting a deafening, wobbling roar. The owners hire someone to fix it, and in walks a 12-year-old boy. The adults expect him to start tearing the machine apart. Instead, the boy just paces back and forth across the room, thinking. After listening to the noise, he figures out that the radio's tubes are heating up in the wrong order. He reaches in, swaps the position of two small glass tubes, and the roaring stops. The radio plays perfectly. The adults are stunned that a child could fix a complicated machine by thinking instead of wrenching. That 12-year-old boy was Richard Fyenman. He would grow up to win a Nobel Prize and become one of history's most respected physicists. This instinct for solving problems was a legacy of his childhood, a unique way of observing the world that he learned from his father, Melville, a man who sold uniforms for a living. Melville Fyenman never went to college, but he decided before Richard was even born that his son would grow up to be a scientist. When they read the encyclopedia together, Melville didn't just recite facts. If a book said a dinosaur was 25 feet tall, he translated that number into a real-world picture. He told Richard to imagine the dinosaurs standing in their front yard, reaching perfectly up to their second-story window. Then he would point out that the dinosaur's head would be too wide to actually fit through the window frame. He was teaching his son to take abstract numbers and turn them into a tangible reality you can almost touch. Years later, on a summer vacation, another boy challenged young Richard to identify a bird sitting in a field, bragging that he knew its exact name. Richard didn't know the name, but he had already learned a much deeper lesson from his father. Melville had told him that you could know the name of that bird in 10 different languages and still know absolutely nothing about the bird itself. All those labels do is tell you what humans call the animal. To actually learn anything, you have to ignore the names and watch what the bird is doing. This taught Fyenman to separate human vocabulary from actual knowledge. He realized early on that memorizing a label is completely different from understanding a concept. Richard noticed this same pattern when playing with a toy wagon. He saw that if he put a ball inside and pulled the wagon forward, the ball rolled to the back. When he suddenly stopped the wagon, the ball rolled to the front. When he asked his father why this happens, Melville gave him the scientific term, inertia. But then he immediately added the truth. Nobody actually knows why inertia exists. It is incredibly rare for an adult to admit they don't know the answer. By being honest, Melville taught his son to never use a fancy word to cover up an empty space in human understanding. Melville applied this exact same logic to people. Looking at magazine photos of popes or kings with crowds bowing around them, he pointed out that the only difference between the men bowing and the leader they worshipped was the uniform. By the time he grew up, Fyenman looked past titles, prestigious names, and uniforms. He saw only the observable truth, treating even the most powerful figures as ordinary men who just happened to be wearing epaulets. As an adult physicist, Fyenman brought this mindset to the top-secret atomic bomb project at Los Alamos. While everyone else trusted the strict security protocols, Fyenman amused himself by quietly picking the combination locks on his boss's filing cabinets. He didn't trust a cabinet just because it had a top-secret label on it, or because the military promised it was secure. He tested the reality of the locks for himself and proved they were vulnerable. Fyenman carried this skepticism into his final major investigation, the 1986 explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger. The investigation was chaotic. Politicians argued over the budget, and project managers actively ignored the actual flight data regarding the spacecraft's safety. Fyenman decided to bypass the bureaucracy entirely. During a live television broadcast, he clamped a piece of the shuttle's rubber seal and dropped it into a simple glass of ice water. With that one physical action, he proved undeniably that the freezing weather on the morning of the launch made the rubber stiff. He bypassed all the confusing math and corporate jargon to show the public exactly what caused the disaster. Fyenman changed how we understand nature by refusing to confuse the name of a thing with the thing itself. He showed that looking closely at the evidence, without the distraction of labels or authority, is the most powerful tool a scientist can possess.